You're still watching the Urban Magazine, and World Food Day is commemorated every 16th of October, and this year it falls on this day, Friday. And the theme for this year is we are going to grow, nourish, sustain together. Our actions are for the future. Now, we'd like to look at why is it very important that we have this very day commemorated. Joining us on the program tonight is David Kabanda. He is the ED at CEFROT, and CEFROT is the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. David, like I just said, is the Executive Director right there. Welcome to the program, David.
Thank you.
Would like to start it off. How is World Food Day a very important day for us as the world to commemorate?
Thank you, Barbara, for having me here. It is very important as the world to come back and have a discussion on this important aspect called food. There are too many issues that are involved in food, and this is why at least every year the world gets back to have a discussion on what food is and how is it produced, how is it eaten, how is it preserved. Yeah, because we know that it is not only the substance that you'll be taking in food, but it takes a lot of energies to process, process, because you are looking at production maybe in the gardens, then post-harvest, then storage, transportation to where it will be eaten, then preparation, and eventually, the table. So what starts in the garden to the table? And you see, in the garden, there are also many things to look at, including the climate change, including the soil, including
the pests,
the diseases, including the water. We are now talking about irrigation. So all these aspects need to have a day off, and maybe we come up with a theme that will sustain us for the entire year. So it is very important, very befitting to have a day off in the entire world when we have candid discussions and reflections on how we feed and how do we sustain. And maybe this year, this is why we grow, nourish, sustain together.
All right.
Yes.
Now, David, do you think as farmers, as people in the world, as citizens of this place, we have embraced the entire aspect of having food indeed that can sustain us even when we do not have days like these to remind us of the impact it has on our lives?
Yeah, unfortunately, if I would answer you in certain terms, the answer is not. And why am I saying unfortunately is because before the proliferation of having the world as one village, you know that people had their indigenous knowledge in terms of how they, first of all, preserve the seed and how the communities used to give themselves the seeds, and the many cultural beliefs and rules around the seeds and how you should preserve the environment, the nature, the trees that you can't cut down, where you pick food, when you go to bush to pick maybe firewood, what can you pick out, what you shouldn't pick out. All that was traditional knowledge trying to preserve nature, but also ensure that there is food sustainability. But right now, where we are now into a commercialization mood, where we have urbanization coming into play, where we have many people who now work in non-agricultural settings. For example, not everyone goes to the garden. And there are too many homes in the world who have never stepped in a garden, who actually don't have any connection whatsoever with food production. So the moment you have that, then there is a whole aspect of regulation coming in as duty bearers to make sure that you enable the people who grow the food, you enable food storage, you enable transportation, and you enable the trade, because you have a sizable number of your population who feed on food from the trade. They just buy, they don't grow it.
Okay.
So we have a challenge that we are not prepared properly in many countries, by the way, including Uganda.
That brings me to the next question. David, as a society, as a Ugandan people, what can be our contribution to having that challenge curbed? And also, what could be the contribution of the people in authority to make sure that this is resolved?
Okay. Now, in our organization, the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, and actually even in the world, if you talk about food, then you are talking about United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, then World Food Program. Then you're talking about UNICEF, because they're dealing with children, breastfeeding, because that is food also.
True, literally.
Then you're talking about UNFPA, because of adolescent nutrition, because nutrition has, food contributes to nutrition and our well-being. And this is why this year, World the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization gave us a theme: grow, nourish. You understand? There is that part, nourish. There is nutrition, but together. So when we eat food, it's not just eating. No.
There's more to that.
Yes, there's more to that. We need to eat such that we nourish the body, such that the body, benefits us. The body gives us what we want. We are human beings. We must serve ourselves. We must serve our people, and we must also live a happy life.
Okay.
So in eating this food, your question is, how can we contribute as a country? The first thing we do, for example, in my organization, is to promote food as a right.
Oh, perfect.
Many people have failed to understand that food is a right. Food is a human right, like other rights. And we want to encourage governments. And in fact, if they took on food as a human right, then we will not have all these issues we are talking about. Maybe to give you some kind of background, specifically in Uganda, you have 39% of your children malnourished.
Sure.
You understand?
Even in the regions where you think there are food baskets for the country.
Interestingly, it is a surprise, it is a disappointment. So why are these figures? And you see, we get these figures from research that is conducted from non-state actors, but also from government, meaning that they know this. Now, what does the right to food entails? Oh, and what are the obligations? We have 3 obligations, but before I go to the obligations, let me tell you the elements. We are talking about food availability.
That's key.
You know, when I grow my food, I'm a farmer in the village, I must be able, government must facilitate. There must be an enabling environment.
For me to have my food in the market and I reap out of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And you see, we are not telling government that bring food and put it on my table. No.
Help us have the food on the table.
Exactly.
Okay.
Create an enabling environment. If I'm a farmer in Nakasongola, if I wanted to know what kind of pest is this, I have found my maize being eaten, but I have seen this one. Do I have a skilled person to help me out of this problem?
Okay.
So availability goes beyond just that, but also these people who don't grow food, is the food available in the shops?
All right, David, I'm afraid we're running out of time.
Yeah.
I'd like us to look at, it's been a COVID year, really.
Yeah.
What has COVID-19 given as an impact to food security in this country?
Oh, God. COVID-19 has caused grave disruptions in social cohesion. You see, people, food, this is why the theme is together. You know, I come to you and Barbara, and you give me food. But we are at a situation where you can't give me food. We cannot exchange. People have lost jobs, and many people are dying silently.
Wow. Sad.
We have children who are going back to school.
As coming to that.
And you see, government is completely neglecting the issue of food, even in their standard operating procedures.
There's not an element of food being highlighted.
No,
but I have seen government walk out to the people and tell us that because of COVID, people are hungry, we're giving food to facilitate or sustain you for some days. And also the markets have been open throughout for us to be able to walk out there and get some food. Maybe if you wanted to shed some light on what extra can be done in a minute.
You see, Barbara, some of us never even went into a lockdown. We kept working, making sure that people can access food. government of Uganda, and I'm not castigating it, but this is a fact. They couldn't give people food. They didn't give people food. They tried in Kampala and Wakiso, but other people never got food. And even where they tried, much of the food was contaminated.
Oh.
Putting that aside, many people right now have no food. We are asking government that the framers of our constitution put a duty there on you, Mr. Government, to establish national food reserves.
Okay.
We are members of the East African community, and in the treaty, Uganda must establish national strategic food reserves.
All right. David, as we wrap this up,
Yeah.
schools have reopened. Candidates have gone back to school. And what is this going to mean for the schools to be able to feed these children for all these months they're going to be there? And what can be done best to make sure that they don't starve there?
We are going to see increased numbers of malnutrition, and children are going to die because of anemia. That parents must be aware. Actually, don't look at only the fees. Make sure that you discuss with the school administration and give your children food, because schools will not. The only thing they can do is to maybe give portion where they can, in very low portions. I'm telling you, schools can't feed children. And the last thing on schools, we have these sugar-sweetened beverages. They must be banned from schools.
Thank you, David.
You're
thank you. That has been what is around matters food, because Friday, 16th October, is World Food Day. Now, to you, school stakeholders, make sure you get into contact with the parents and make sure that you have enough food supplied to the schools to sustain the children as they come in back to the school term. We'll take a break now. Urban Magazine returns shortly. Stay with us.